Anat and Layla, what's amazing about this, with all your connections, Anat, and with the publicity of the film, that the situation regarding the house is not able to be resolved.
Right, because you know why it's stuck in the, because it's so complicated and because the courts in Israel are horrific, and the situation, the political situation is horrific, and you take the two of them and you'll get that.
Another question? Correct.
Two things. I'm not sure that his question was answered about how the actors by Layla, how the actors felt being in the film. But I noticed one thing which I appreciated in the film when they were sitting in front of the cafe, the men's cafe, and Layla went and put one foot in the door. I mean, I was just wondering about that. Was that like an intentional moment? Or, you know, I just really wondered about what that was about. And I'm a little confused about whether her house was in Jerusalem or Bethlehem. I thought I thought I heard that in there. So if you could clarify that.
Okay, so I will ask you. So I'm taking two questions, if it's okay. The one he asked, and you're about the coffee scene. Okay. She's picking the coffee. She wants to talk about the coffee.
קודם כל אני עברתי לשם מפני שהייתי באיזה נקודת מתח עם הבת שלי ופשוט ראיתי כיסאות, לא הסתכלתי אם יש גברים או אין, אני רציתי לשבת לשתות קפה או לשתות כוס מים, זה כל מה שנראה לי בתור רגע, אבל להתחיל לחשוב אם יש גברים או מתח, זה לא היה מעניין אותי בכלל, פשוט בתור רגע שמענו בום, אז הבת שלי התחילה לפחד ואז קמנו, אבל ככה אז אני לא ראיתי ממטר את האמת.
So what she said actually, that we were filming and they went into this argument and it was very tenseful, and then she just wanted to relax themselves in a coffee, and she didn't really capture that it was a man coffee and all the situation. But Agar was telling her, she was telling you, but I think she thought that it's good that they are sitting there, it's okay, you know, they can. I think she never afraid. Never ever. I think she's not the fearful kind of person anyway.
עכשיו בקשר לשאלה שלו על משחק בתוך הסרט.
על העבודה בתוך הסרט, כן.
לא יודעת איך לקרוא לזה, עבודה או משחק. קודם כל אני שמה איקס על משחק, מפני שלא היה משחק במשחק. כל מה שהיה...
She wasn't acting, to be clear.
זה היה כל מילה או כל רגע של הקאמרה עובדת, אני גם עבדתי אבל לעצמי, עבדתי בשביל הרגש שלי והמתח שלי ומה אני הייתי רוצה להגיד לעצמי שהקאמרה תקלוט את זה, זה כל העניין, אין פה משחק.
She was working on her emotion in front of the camera in order to, it's not acting, but just to express what she's trying to express in her everyday life, if that's fair.
I, by the way, disagree, but this is another story. But she's very natural. She's a very natural person, but I think I disagree not about what she says, I disagree about the nature of what is natural.
But by the way, anyone who's ever in a documentary knows that usually knows that there's a camera there, and therefore there's some level, we won't call it acting, but the camera is capturing what they're doing and what they're expressing. Sorry to ruin all movies for you. We're going to take two last questions, one here and one there.
In that vein, what was the reaction of your ex-husband and his new wife that you were filming this movie and that they were being portrayed in the light that they were portrayed in, and obviously she obviously knew when you showed up at the house that you were filming her, and the ex-husband as well on the telephone knew that his conversations were being recorded. I was just wondering what their reaction was to the film, and then it was shown in their hometown, I would imagine. As you said, it was shown in Egypt.
היא לא שיתפה פעולה, היא קודם תקפה אותי ואחר כך אני ניגשתי אליה ורציתי להעביר לה את האמת שלי, כי גם לה עובר משהו, לא סתם, אני חייתי עם בן אדם 30 שנה ואני יודעת איך הוא מתנהג איתה, ואני שמעתי מהילדים ואני יודעת מה עושה לה, לא פחות ממני. ואז שהתקרבתי אליה ופשוט שוחחתי אותה, אמרת לה, מה, את לא יודעת את האמת? את באה לשחק עליי משחקים? בסוף הסתכלה עליי בשיא הפשוטות, וזה לא היה מתוכנן. היא אמרה, נכון, גם אותי הוא גירש כמה פעמים מהבית, אז יופי, זהו.
So she ended up going. I'll summarize, and she looks at the new wife and confronted her and said, you don't think I know what's going on? And the wife said, he's kicked me out of the house a few times too. So she knows what's going on, and it seems that there's an understanding between them of what's going on with this guy, but she doesn't know of him as a collaborator in any way.
I just want to add that from my perspective, as Lila said, she was attacking her at the start of the scene, and then it was amazing how Lila, with her truth and very kindly, she was talking to her, and she was talking about the baby, and because it was a windy day, and in some way she just like a magic moment it was, and I think also because she saw that we are filming. And I think that in some way, because of the way that Lila spoke to her and spoke to her in a very high level kind of, I know you, I know what you're going through, I know you're suffering and pain. And in a minute, it was amazing to see the footage, by the way, because suddenly she wanted to talk about her suffer. Simply that. It was unbelievable. And she was also in some way aware, complete aware of the camera, and so it's so interesting, this kind of twist that was happening inside the scene.
I think we've got one last question.
One last question over here. Did you have a question?
I strongly believe, as somebody who lived in Jerusalem, and I lived in Jerusalem in early 70s, that, and I lived in Israel for many, many years, I think it's a beautiful movie, but there are things that are out of context in the movie, and it's very unclear, and it's very vague, and doesn't feel right to me as an Israeli who lived in Jerusalem.
What element?
Well, for example, like we just were talking, it was not discussed in the movie. What do you do for a living?
But when you do a poetic, it's a very question of context, and in that it's true. For me, it's a story. I write stories in filmmaking. For instance, when many short stories you read, you don't have all the information about your protagonist, because I didn't want to tell about everything about her. So it's a question of the kind of, I will say, the form of the film. And if you accept that this is a form, then you can accept it and get the right notion. If you don't accept it, it's also your right. I don't make movies like Spielberg for everyone.
Can we know what Lila does for a living? What Matosa מקצועית?
אני גננת במקצועי ויצאתי לפנסיה מוקדמת, ועכשיו אני מדריכה באקים עם בנות בעל צרכים מיוחדים.
She's a nursery school teacher who retired, and now she's working with women with disabilities.
And now we changed all the film. You see it in a terrific different light and context. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to Leila and Anat for doing this, and I'm sure they'll be around for a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you all.